Hi, right, so I'm here to talk to you about breathing and how it can affect lots of aspects of your fitness, due to down to back pain, how your core kind of activates. So I'm just going to explain some of that in depth. So in the last few weeks in our classes, you've seen there's been some abdominal breathing drills, and it's really important for loads of reasons, but I want to explain to you this theory. It's by a physio, Julie Weeb, about how the core works and why breathing into your abdominals is really important. So if you imagine, I've got my little trusty balloon here. At the top, you've got your diaphragm. At the bottom, you've got your pelvic floor. And then you've got your core muscles here. So your core muscles are made up of different layers. So most people think about our rectus abdominis, our six-pack muscles, because they're the ones you can see. So we tend to focus on those quite a lot. But underneath there, you've got your TA, your transverse abdominals. Now, they're actually really important when it comes to sort of core activation. Everybody thinks about gripping with their six-pack abs, but it's actually underneath that, this deeper sort of corset layer we want to think about. And so when we think about these corset abs that are underneath, they're kind of linked to how our diaphragm and our pelvic floor work. Everybody has a pelvic floor, men and women. It's important how that works. It's just the consequences for women are slightly different to men, just due to lifetime sort of things that we go through, like pregnancy and menopause, and due to hip angles, things like that. But it is important for all of us to focus on how this is related to each other. So if you think about your diaphragm, when you breathe in, your diaphragm comes down and your pelvic floor also comes down. But as you exhale, your diaphragm rises, so does your pelvic floor. And as that happens, your deep abdominals, your transverse abdominals, your TA, they wrap around and create this kind of core engagement. There's also some spinal muscles that are involved in this. So you need to think of it like a piston. So your core works like a piston. So as the diaphragm comes down, so does the pelvic floor. And as it comes up together, and you get this wrapping underneath of your sort of deeper abdominal layer. And that provides support for you. You don't get that so much from your six-pack abs. It is that deeper thing. So you've got to think about this canister sort of system. So if you're not breathing into your abdominals properly and you're not getting that full sort of movement in your diaphragm, then when you exhale or you try to engage your core, you're kind of unable to do that because that whole system's not working. And if you imagine your core is a little bit like a balloon, so if something doesn't work right in that, so say if you start gripping with your six-pack abs, so I'm hugging really tight with my six-pack abs, you're creating pressure within that system. And so when that pressure is in that system, then it's got to go somewhere. So it's either going to come up into your diaphragm, into your chest. So you're going to start chest breathing. So chest breathing can have a whole host of issues, one that you're not going to be using your abdominals properly. You're not going to get that kind of abdominal contraction, but also you can then get tight intercostal muscles. So the muscles in between your rib cage, which can lead to posture issues. Or it's going to go down into your pelvic floor. So this for ladies can be things like incontinence, but also for men, that can lead to things like erectile dysfunction over time. So it's worth us all sort of thinking about this. So gripping in too tight with your sort of six-pack abs isn't great. So learning to relax and let the air fully fill here allows that whole system to be relaxed. And so the same goes that if you're using things like, lifting belts. So I'm not a big fan of using belts because when you put a belt on to lift or anything like that, it squeezes in again. So you don't actually learn to contract your core. So you might think it's protecting your back, which, you might not feel pain when you're in that movement, but in terms of long-term health, it's not really helping you. Same thing goes when you are sort of engaging your abs. So if you are doing something and you think, right, I need to brace, I'm going to grip my abs really tight, then actually what you're doing is you're sending pressure in the wrong places. So then what can't happen is this whole piston system where as you exhale, your deep abdominals, they're there to support you. They're going to stop you getting back pain, things like that. They're not going to be able to activate properly. And so over time, this will accumulate into you having issues sort of with your core, with your abdominals, and it can lead to back pain, and it can also then lead to things like poor posture because you're then stabilizing with the wrong muscles. You're stabilizing with your six-pack abs and you're stabilizing with your spinal erectors rather than using this deep abdominal system that works together nicely in this kind of in this piston sort of way. So that's why abdominal breathing is really important, so that as you learn to fill and relax that stomach, then you are able to allow your abs to work properly as well. This whole system needs to be able to move. It's the same thing that if you were trying to learn how to do a bicep curl, if you only ever moved it through this range of motion, it would never get strong and it would eventually break. But the same goes for your abdominals. on your core, if you're not allowing things to move through their full range of motion, then they're never going to get as strong as they need to be and support you as they should. Which is why learning to relax your core so that you're able to get that full movement of your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, and so you get that full wrapping of your deep abdominals will, over time, it will be a piece in the puzzle of sort of creating a nice stable system and a strong core. So don't necessarily focus on just those six-pack abs. And when you're thinking about core contraction, we all tend to go too tight, but actually your body is really good at generating the right amount of tension. So if you're like thinking, oh, I'm gonna grip like at 100% or 80% on my abs, so that I don't hurt my back, actually, that may well make things worse because that whole deep abdominal system isn't able to work properly. You want to think more like 10 to 20%, just, a small contraction. And then when you pick up a weight or whatever, your body, your nervous system will be able to take care of however much tension it needs to put in that system. So I hope you found that interesting. It's just a little bit of background about your core, but abdominal breathing, really important. Learning to relax your core is a really powerful tool in learning to strengthen your core.